All right, so now we're kind of at the point where we're ready to start designing our stuff. And before we just launch directly into working with WordPress, trying to build our custom theme from scratch, it might be, well, not might be, but it's a good idea to have some general sense of what you want the thing to look like before you get started in earnest. And the reason for that is because even though you can do like in-browser designing, and a lot of people do that, in fact, I do that sometimes, it's still a good idea if you have a pretty large project to get some basic idea of how you want the thing to look. And so you could start to do mock-ups. Now, there are lots of different ways you can do mock-ups. I'm not going to dictate to you how you do them, at least not at the time I'm doing this video. But anyway, so you can use Photoshop, you can use Illustrator and stuff like that. But here's the problem with those things. If you do mock-ups in Photoshop and Illustrator, the problem is sometimes that it's so much more complex in terms of making, basic shapes and things like that, and then getting them to just snap where you want them to go and being able to easily duplicate them and stuff like that, um, it ends up taking you a lot longer, a lot of times, to make it than you might want it to. Now, Adobe has come out with a competitive product recently in the last couple of years, and now they've finally gone to their alpha version. It's no longer in beta. It's called XD, right, for experience design. And this is a great tool for prototyping and mocking stuff up. Now, it can go into full-blown prototyping, right, where you can have, things that you click buttons and it shows you the next screen and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that it's a fully functional, real, honest-to-God website or anything like that. It's just a prototype, but it's a really great tool. We're not going to get into the prototyping part of it just yet. In this demonstration, what I'm going to show you is just how you can do some different artboard designs based on your screen dimensions so that you can get a general sense of what the layout's supposed to be. And the idea is not just necessarily for you to see what it looks like, but it would also be to see, let other people see what it looks like before you go to the trouble of actually trying to build it in the browser. Okay, and through code and stuff. This gives you also a sense of the assets you need. It gives you a sense of, whether or not you need to go find different colors, what fonts you're going to use. It forces you to make a lot of those kinds of decisions. All right, so here's something that I already have put together, and I'm going to show you kind of where we're going to end up with it. I'm not going to go through the entire tutorial to show you how I made every single one of these things. I'm going to give you some of the basics so that you can get started, but where we're going to end up is in XD. You see we've got this thing here, and this is we've got 3 different mockups in our design layout. You see we're up here in design, and the first one you see up here, it's using one of their basic UI tools, which is Web 1920. All right, so that's a 1920 by 1080 standard viewport, and you see this dotted line that indicates where the fold would be, or the bottom of the viewport. And the rest would all be scrollable, and I'll show you later how to make all that stuff scrollable. But what's kind of cool is I can look at this artboard, I can hit this play button, and then it'll get large as if it's in a browser window, and it becomes scrollable so that I can see the rest of my design, so that it looks like a website, like the way that a website would look. And then, if I start to scale it, it will scale it down so that you can see, about how big, or how small you can handle it being at a certain size. So you can kind of play around with that too. But it's not going to flip into responsive mode for you unless you start to go into the prototyping section, which I said before, we're not going to get into that. The idea is just for you to get into the way that things look for general spacing. And you can see here that some of my spacing maybe isn't perfect, but you can start to get an idea. And these buttons, I don't have anything functional about them. You can make them functional in the prototyping, but this is kind of cool because you can kind of really get a sense of exactly how you want it to look. And so that's one of them. Actually, my spacing is a little bit off, so you can see I can adjust that and fix it. And the other thing too that I might want to do is take this whole section, and I don't know if I have everything grouped. Yeah, I do. I can sort of scoot that over. So anyway, you get the idea, and I can move that stuff around. And then I can just pan over to my other artboard, and if I click the artboard title up here, then I can go ahead and hit the play button. And then again, I've got my prototype set so that I can scroll it, and you can start to see how this works. And what's really cool is like this part right here would be really, really repetitive to make this in Illustrator or in Photoshop. But the issue that XD addresses is that you can make repeatable regions, which is really cool. And I'm not going to get really, really deep into this, where you can even like import text files and map them to stuff so that it will actually, you know, put real looking data in. But we're just going to do some of the basics, okay? And then here's something that, you know, I went ahead and I grabbed one of their UI tools for iPhone 6 or 7 Plus. And again, we can take a look and see how it would look on a smaller screen. And I don't have a functional uncollapsing menu. That's something else you could do. This is a repeatable region, by the way, this feature box. So that's how it would cascade. And then this is how this stuff would cascade. And you'll notice that this looks a little bit different, say, than it did. These articles look different here than they do in this mobile version. So you can like even start to kind of figure some of that stuff out, right? And then you've got the footer and how the footer pieces are going to cascade. See how they're different over here? This is how they would actually look, right? So that gives you some sense of some of the things that you can do. They're pretty cool in XD. And so I want to go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to end this video here, and we'll move into the next one, where I'm going to show you, how to get started in XD.